And we are going. What is going on with everybody? It is your boy Eric, aka Young God, coming to you live in the Green Dungeon, giving it to you a real raw rugged. And I usually have people introduce themselves, but I have a bona fide legend on FaceTime right now. Bona fide, that was a double entendre, by the way, because that's what I did there. But I feel like I have to introduce you now.
Respect.
I have over 200 interviews, and I can only say about seven of those people, maybe four of those people, are really bona fide legends. Like Bobby Caldwell, I would say that
Oh,
guy's a bona fide legend.
Bobby,
Uh,
the
Interview
man.
Marlon Wayans, legend in his
Yes.
right. A couple other people, but I haven't interviewed yet the man himself, the R&B musical legend John B. Man, how you doing today?
Oh man, pleasure to be with you, Eric. Thanks so much for taking your time out, man. For sure.
Hey man, this
Absolutely.
this is one of those things that I had to do because just growing up, my mother would play you all the time, and I'm just like, you know what?
Wow.
This is one of those things I could show my mom. Like, mom, guess what I interviewed today? You know?
Well, big up to mom as well for sharing the music. You know what I mean, and just yourself, just for having this is our language, man. The language of music, and whoever it speaks to. That's the beautiful thing about it. That's the reward really after I make the music. You know what I mean? Is to have the interaction with the listener. You know what I mean? And see actually how long it lasts. Like that's the beauty of it to see after a song is written, to see if it's ever remembered, almost like a time capsule. You
Yeah.
kind of bury it and forget, and then you walk away from it, and then someone digs it up one day, and they're like, "Hey, did you forget about this?" And you're like, "Oh my gosh!" So yeah, thank you.
Of course, I feel like there's been a lot of time capsule stuff, a lot of stuff happening recently. I've been saying that a lot. Like as I watch something, I'm like, yo, this is like a moment in history. Like we're going to remember this, even if it's a good thing
Yes,
or a bad thing. Like I'm a big basketball
yes.
fan, so when I seen Kobe Bryant died,
Um,
I'm like, yo, this is
Rest in power.
like this is going to be something that 2,000 years from now, people are going to be like, yo, we didn't get to see this guy play, but
Yeah,
this guy is amazing, you know. And
yeah.
yeah, that was it's been a lot of crazy stuff going. I mean, even this coronavirus thing, it feels like the a time capsule thing is wow. How are you dealing with this?
I'm doing well, man. I'm really concerned about everyone around me. You know what I mean? I'm just protecting my family, keeping everybody at home. Staying at home is really the key. I think a lot of people take it for granted. I'm seeing on the news the couple of times that I've had to go to the store to re up on what's
Yeah,
necessary for the life. I didn't have a choice. In the case of some of the internet shopping, is just not available in some senses of going to the grocery store. So, for all, just for being, the father and the provider that I am, I go out and assume the responsibility and take the risk to go out there in the world. But right now, it's just whether you have it or not, or whether that you know that you have it or not, you can still be a carrier and not have any symptoms. You can contract it very easily just by going out and being around people right now. So it's real, and it's so many of my dear friends, close people that I know, have contracted it, and they're getting through it. I'm praying for them. Um, but I just think that people they're not taking heed to the warnings that are being said right now, and so a lot of I think that sends the wrong message to the world. Anybody who's out there is just kind of operating like your normal life, like nothing's happening right now. Especially the youth who really don't, the young people who can't really put this together in their head. They especially, I think, they can't really fathom what's going on right now.
well, we both are Americans, and I'm pretty sure you can agree with me that like I feel like Americans have like just a rebellious attitude by nature. So
Yes,
it's like, hey, stay inside the house. Or you're telling me to stay inside the house? I'm gonna go
yeah,
outside and rebel. So I feel like it's a lot
yeah,
of that going on, and I
yeah.
don't know why. Like I feel like you've traveled the world way more than I have. So is there something that you see like a difference with Americans compared to like other countries? Like, are we more rebellious than other people, or have you seen anything like that?
I think that the rebellion exists within the the um, the fact that we're a free country, who we actually are all about having the freedom freedom of speech, the
Mm.
freedom of rights. You know, as much as it's completely not like that in reality
Yeah.
in terms of like the way it's set up. Um, but I think that we are the most rebellious, and I feel like if Korea can get their thing together uh, through whatever means, through obviously order, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They get the sickness taken care of and under control. I think that says itself, like what it is to to have order and to work together, or be even forced to work together in that sense. We're not forced to do really anything in this sense. I mean, so I feel like it's going to be. I don't know. It could get worse. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully this is you know this is going to end soon, and hopefully there'll be a cure for this soon. But the main thing that's really scary is that people are not concerned.
Hmm.
They're not concerned for their health. They're not concerned for their children's health. They're not concerned for anyone else around it, acting like nothing's happening. And I think that mentality, whether it's American, whether it's international, whatever, is just a dangerous mentality to have. Whatever you are. And I feel like education is the key to right now to having a defense against this is really to kind of know some facts, scientific facts, medical facts, on how to protect yourself and how to deal with the situation. Also, if you do contract this thing, you do have symptoms. So information is definitely like vital right now. So yeah, I'm always on the news. I'm always paying attention to things. Both my wife and I right now, staying up on the information.
No, I think education is very key because there's so much misinformation and still so much uncertainty with the scientists because it's such a new virus. They don't even know everything. That the
Yeah,
things that people are seeing or certain things that people are seeing, it's false. They might read it and think it is true, and it might have been believed to be true a week ago by scientists, but then they're like, "Whoa, we just found this is actually not true." But
yeah.
people aren't really educating themselves, and I can only speak from Florida because I'm from Florida.
Okay.
Florida people, they take nothing seriously. As you know, Florida gets hit with hurricanes every year. When a hurricane
Yeah.
comes, people literally throw hurricane parties. Like people like, oh, it's a hurricane
Yeah.
coming, let's have fun.
Wow.
Now they see like a virus coming, and it's like, oh, it's just we survive hurricanes, we survive the virus. So there's just so much, I think, free care, and like you said, free. That's a very big word. People have like this mind of we're in democracy, so we're free. So yeah, I think people
Yeah.
definitely should be cautious for sure.
Yeah. There's a fine line between being free and having that freedom, and then going too far out the lines to where you're playing with your life. You're
Yeah.
playing with reality. You're playing with reality, like whether you're gonna be here or
And I
not.
want to say also not even their
You're
life.
enjoying the spring break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You may not be here for next spring. You know what I mean? So my whole thing is to just treat life like it's important right now,
Well,
regardless of whether the things that we hear are true or not. Have respect for yourself and others by staying home. That's the point. You know what
yeah, I was gonna say not even playing with their life, playing with other people's lives for sure, like older
You know
people's
what I mean?
lives.
Real
So yeah,
talk. Like the
that's the
man
thing.
who just died on the bus who was talking about how he's a bus driver and somebody had the nerve to get on and cough in front of him during this pandemic, and not even cover their mouth.
Hmm.
And then 2-3 days later he's passed, you know. And some people are watching that going, yeah, man, this guy's has the nerve to like complain about somebody coughing on the bus, man. He's a bus driver. That's what driving the bus is. Nah, man. What about covering your mouth? What about wearing appropriate, protective gear? Because obviously the person was carrying the coronavirus,
Yeah.
coughed on him. You know what I mean? So and he probably didn't even know he had it.
Hmm.
That's the point. So yeah, man.
Like, the only
Please
thing,
stay at home.
yeah, only thing we could do is just hope people be safe and not just pray.
that's
And
that's right. That's right, man.
only thing you can really do at this point. But I kind of want to take a step back and kind of talk about your upbringing because I feel like me and you we share little similarities a little bit. So even though you weren't classically trained, like you self-taught yourself basically on the piano, right?
Yeah.
You were raised by people who were classically trained, right? So I wasn't raised by anybody who was classically trained, but I went to art school
Oh yeah.
for a portion of my life where I was classically trained in music. You know,
Oh,
so
fantastic, man.
I kind of want to ask you this because I know you were kind of like kind of refusing to be classically trained. You wanted to do your own thing or whatnot. And even though I don't really do music now today, I take the classically trained things that I was taught and I try to apply it to like modern commercial music, and I feel like I have a better
Oh
understanding of it. So I'm
yeah.
curious. I'm pretty sure you know a lot of stuff about classical music because like your mom, you know, was raised in that or whatnot. So do you ever apply those like you know those things into modern
Yeah,
music?
I think it's kind of like innate in me to have that sort of that sensibility of the complexity of my chords
Hmm.
sometimes. Being that I grew up around classical music, because my ear is trained in that sense of thinking outside the realm of triad type of chord progression, or not chord progression, but a chord setup, a chord itself, like being based off of like pure harmonies, like on a triad skit, you know. Um, and for people who are not set up on the theory level like that, it means when you go ba, that's the first note, and the harmony's like ah, and then the next harmony's like ah, you know, that's
Yeah.
triad harmony right there, right? So with classical music, it's much more like notes are right next to each other. It's kind of eerie at times. It could be sad, it could be heroic, but there's different, you know, a lot of different emotions in classical music, as you know. And if you grow up hearing that, then your ear isn't trained in a sense to automatically hear those triad, those beautiful harmonies right away. You also hear some other things, and it's kind of like those. I would almost consider it dissonance
I was
in
just
the
finna bring up that word. I was literally just finna bring up that word. Yes.
you know, it's dissonance, and that itself doesn't really exist itself in uh, soul music in a sense of a primary ingredient. I think soul music, R&B music, is based off of harmony and melody and things that are harmonious and rhythmic. And so I think that when you come into classical elements and bringing in sort of these very, I wouldn't know how to describe classical music, but because there is a certain sophistication I feel like with having a sort of like not really adhering to what everyone else is doing, but sort of like have the creativity and the belief in yourself to sort of like try something new. And when you bring in energies from other, you know, from other sources like classical music or rock or reggae or any of these other things, I think it's kind of puts a different spin on what we do. And I feel like I've always kind of innately sort of like had that about me when I produce. Um, it kind of comes out, and I have to make an effort to sort of not play the piano with this sort of like uh, it's weird. It's like I have to make an effort to sort of train myself sometimes to not play so neat or so, you know, elegantly, but more play, you know, funky. Play a little more straight on the rhythm and just
Hmm.
precise. But don't play, you know, beautiful arpeggiations that you know are grandiose. You know what I mean? It's like that exists in a certain element for certain songs. It's very sophisticated. It has a sound to a grand piano, rolling the piano, you know, all that type of stuff. It exists in a certain element for certain things. It works. It's like having chandeliers on your ceiling. You know what I mean? But you don't put a chandelier up in every house, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you have, you know, a different kind of lighting, you know, in a chandelier. So you incorporate those elements that really fit for whatever vibe you're going for. But it's nice to be able to pull from those different places, like classical music. It's heavy. It's not for everybody.
Now I feel like being musically inclined, it definitely helps you because like the way you're talking, you know why? Because some people just might make a song and they don't know why other people like it. I feel like you can make a song and you understand it. Like, for example, you're not going to play a funky song in a certain type of way that you would play like a classical song or whatnot. Like if you're in a
No,
symphonic band, you're not going to play the same way you would in a jazz band. It's a completely
that's
different way
right.
to
That's
play.
right.
And my teacher used to be like very obsessed with dissonance, and he used to always bring up the words. That's funny. That's why you bring that up. He used to always talk about why that's so important, why that's so important. And like I said, when you're singing a song, when you're singing a sad song, you know the melodies and you know the dissonance and you know what chord to hit and what chord not to hit because it's going to bring a certain type of emotion out the listener. Do you constantly think of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do. I feel like it's been so much time now playing that I don't even necessarily even have to look at the keyboard anymore.
Mm.
That it's like I'm intuitive to where the keys are, and I know what emotions I want to evoke. So I'm kind of like reaching for that emotion with the keys that I know how to play. And it's just like with the notes that I know how to sing with my voice. If I come up with a certain melody to go behind, to sing a certain lyric, it's because this is how I'm feeling, and I feel like this melody is gonna make me feel even more like what these words are talking about.
Mm.
And so I sing that emotion. And I think that's what a lot of people don't really um, apply too much to music. Is the personal connection that the artist actually has to what they're singing. I feel like people just hear good music and they just believe it right away. For me, I have to believe you. I have to you have to say something to me. I don't care what it is. You could be saying any statement, but if I can't believe you when you're saying it, then it's like it might as well. You might as well just. It's not even a matter whether it's good music or bad music, because these days you have 12 writers in a room to go write one record for one dude. You know what I mean? It's like, or one lady or whatever. It's not a personal message, to my point. And I'm not complaining or saying anybody who does that is whack. I'm just saying that today, the lack of a personal voice for everyone is what I'm saying. It's almost like people don't believe in artistry, real artistry anymore, or the sense of having individuality. It's almost like we have to belong to something that is like something else for it to be liked. You know what I mean? And I've always been one to rebel against that. We were talking about rebellion. I mean, I've always been sort of a rebel, a soul rebel, though. Someone to go against the grain of what everyone else is doing, and try to bring in some sort of elegance into a situation that it also might have a grimy footprint, a grimy foundation, but then all of a sudden, the beat might be super grimy hip hop. I might have used these vinyl drums that just are super guttery, just gully drums, like some New York brick type drums. You know what I mean? In the bricks or whatever in the Bronx somewhere. You know what I mean? You hear some hard roll by, and it's that's the beat you hear. But then on top of that, I'll put some neat sort of elements that have nothing to do with that element. It might be some sort of jazz hall somewhere you were in. You know what I mean? And you hear French horns and saxophones and trombones, and it's all kinds of different elements. I feel like you can bring into music to really allow the listener to sort of evoke those emotions, man, and take them on a real journey. It's not even a movie. It's not even a visual thing, but it is. It's a visual. It's an audible movie, and I like to put people in a place where they kind of almost have to listen to something 3 or 4 times before they get it. It's like it has enough detail that one listen isn't going to be enough. It's like you have to catch it, and so you're gonna have to keep listening to it in order to catch all the detail.
Well, no,
That's how I rock.
Well, no, I was gonna say you just brought up something that I think that is very important, and I have a theory on something. I'm curious of what you think about it. I have a theory on why I think R&B music is not what it used to be anymore, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this. So, starting off with something what you just said, you're talking about bringing in French horns, trombones, tubas, and instruments, things like that. I think that the lack of live instrumentation in R&B and soul music is one of the reasons why it's not what it is anymore. Because I feel like an actual instruments evoke emotion out of the listener
Yeah.
when they hear it, even though if they don't even know that, that's in their subconscious, that hearing a violin, that's gonna, it's gonna, tug on the heart a little bit, you know what
That's
I'm
right.
saying?
That's
And
right.
my second main reason is I don't think that a lot of these singers know how to sing. I feel like they're relying on some type of like robot or computer, or something to make their voice sound better. So without lack of emotion with instruments, without a actual like vocal register that you can sing with, I feel like what is the point of soul? Because
It's
there's
a
no
different
soul in it.
kind of it's a different kind of soul. It's a little more mechanical. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little more perfect in a sense of it. Like, if we can draw the vocal out on a graph and make it perfect after we sang it so it sounds perfect. Can you sing it like that live though? Can you ever sing it like that live? And if you could, then great. And whatever. And I feel like whatever's gonna move the creativity forward, that's what we have to
Mm.
put our conscious on. Is really, it's a tool, and it's supposed to be a tool to make your creativity come out and be the best that it can be. And it's a polishing tool, the same way that you would French polish a violin after you're done carving it out. You polish with some fine polish to make it look even more smoother. Well, that's what auto-tune was, in a sense. First was the initial idea. Now we made it a style to turn it all the way up,
Yeah.
make it robotic, like the Roger Troutman vibe. Back we all grew up on it, on Zap and Roger, and more bounce to the ounce. So it's like the electronic sound of the voice, the robotic sound, has always been a funky thing that has been a part of R&B and hip hop music, and the style of it. But it's just the tool changed. And we went from singing through a tube box, a tube, the tube through the keyboard and whatever, the talk box, to now we have the auto tune plug-in. We throw that on our voice, and we immediately turn into T-Pain, and we turn into our version of Roger Troutman. So, and I feel like it's a creative tool, but I feel that you have now a whole generation that grew up not knowing that you don't have to sing through auto-tune, because that's how much music is auto-tuned out there. You have a whole generation. Let's say you're 15, 16 years old right now. You grew up in the time where auto-tune existed, and pretty much almost every single song out there, unless you're talking about like, you could probably name it on your hands. The people who have come out without being auto-tuned, I would almost bet you money that those people you think don't have auto-tune on their voice, they have some sort of pitch correction on that. It's edited somewhere, because it's just too tempting for a producer to find a way of making things even better than they could be. It's like editing in the movies. Oh, her skin's so flawless for the video. When we shot the movie, her skin's perfect, but now they still want to do airbrush editing on the after the scene. It's just it's like almost like it was meant to be something that was used subtly, and I feel like we turned it into something that is now a way for us to kind of hide behind this plugin that kind of gives us this texture where we can't really make out the voice, because everybody starts to sound the same after a while through auto-tune, and I feel that we got to back it down a bit somewhere. I love using auto-tune in the sense of like how having it fix the things that are the little nuances that I don't like about my voice. When my pitch goes a little bit off, and I wanted it to be perfect, but I didn't want to take the time to make the take perfect, and it would actually take more time and take away from the vibe if I took the time to go over and over and try to get So get that one little thing perfect, put the auto-tune on it, and it's done. And it's not a matter of it being like cheating. It was a tool. I'm using exactly what it was meant for. So, but if I turned it all the way up and made my voice sound like, a robot, then you're gonna be like, that's not John B. That's not the sound that I like of his voice. Why is he making it sound like that? And I know better than to come out with a record like that where I got the auto-tune tweaked up, way too high, and that's also just tasteful for me. Like, that's what I like. I'm not dissing anybody else who does their thing, like that, because I feel like everybody who does what they do with auto-tune right now is winning, and I'm not mad at anybody and what they're doing. I'm loving the way that it's being used in modern music right now. But it's not to say though that there is a generation that literally grew up not knowing about what real organic singing is. I grew up off of real singers like Johnny Gill, Marvin Gaye, Donny Hathaway, Michael Jackson, Ron Isley, R. Kelly. I mean, the list goes on. Babyface. I mean, it's these are real singers that could sing you a whole song, stack the backgrounds with no auto tune, zero. So when I hear artists like Tank or Chris Brown using auto tune, it's because it's a tasteful thing for them to do for that record, and it's a texture thing. It's not because they need it. You know what I mean? Because they can sing circles around any of these guys out here in the game, man. But it's a matter of taste. It's whatever you feel like the record needs, and it's a certain swag, man, that autotune brings to a vocal take in a certain element. If you're trying to put that sound on your voice right now in music, it works more than it doesn't work right now because it's so accepted. But I think for certain circles and certain followings, if you try to throw a gang of autotune on your voice, like for my fans, I don't think that's what they want to hear. That being said, we can move on from the auto-tune.
Well, yeah, no, I was just gonna say that I think what you said is great because I love people with auto tune, and what I want to touch on, what I want to touch on before we move on is you said I think it makes because artists are perfectionists, man. You guys want to be perfect, so that adds a little perfect touch. But the way I look at that, I would compare it to like super duper over lyrical rap to people who's talking like real stuff. So like for example, you could be like rhyming every syllable, millable, illable. People might like that, but then compared to somebody like Tupac, who I love, and I don't think he would even consider himself like the greatest lyricist of all time. But when you listen to what he's saying, it's like that's forever going to be raw and real and relevant, and it's not perfect. It's not the most over lyrical thing, but you listen to Brenda's Got a Baby. It's like wow, our
so much feeling,
so much of that,
Even if it was something that he was saying that was real, like it just seemed real ignorant. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, you did not say that right now. That's like the tales from back when you were, just wilding, right? And but he said it so to the point, and so you saw it visually in your head. That's part of rap too, man. You know what I mean? It's telling a story, and I feel like if you tell a story, that's even better than a punchline sometimes, or a metaphor that ended up being a punchline. One thing I can't get my head around right now is rapping is using the same same word with the same rhyme, like rhyming the same word with the same word. That's the style part for me. That the 90's break off work. We were different. We come from a different code. Because back then, when we were freestyling or whatever, and you use the same word twice, it was because you couldn't come up with anything else. You know what I mean? And I was like, you said the same word twice, bro. And we held each other accountable for that. Now I feel like it's done. It's done in a clever way because it's look how many ways I can use this. I'm making mean two different things, or three different things, whatever. And I get that part. It's just I feel like that's a good example of like instantaneous gratification, and then taking the time to actually find a word to rhyme with that motherfucker. You know what I mean? It's like excuse my language, but
no, yeah.
Real talk. Real talk is like auto tune will get you right there. Boom, turn it on, and so with rhyming the word that you're looking for with the same word.
Yeah.
So it's like the amount of time you put on it, man. You know what I mean? And it's all good. It both work.
Well, to kind of touch,
either one's better than the other one.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact. And I was gonna say to kind of touch in the '90s, and that's when you kind of started blossoming with your career, and everybody got on to John B and who John B the legend was. Before we get into that, I have a question that I think is one of the hardest musical questions I've ever came across in my life, and I'm curious of what your answer is to this. Now, I feel like you may have a thing for '90s R&B, but the question is, if you had to take one, which one would you take? Is it '90s R&B or '70s soul music?
Ooh, '70s soul music. Absolutely.
Why? do you go with '70s?
Oh man, well, I'm a '74 baby, so I was born '74, And I grew up in the time. I grew up the year the Fender Rhodes was created, and it came out. You know what I mean? The Fender Rhodes was created in 1974, and it's only right because that's my baby right there.
Mm.
That's I've been playing the Rhodes piano since I started Artistry, and it was always something that I wanted growing up, but was so expensive and so heavy and so hard to get that it wasn't until I actually was able to rent one with my first band that when I got signed or whatever, and I had my first rehearsal, and I finally had a Rhodes piano. I remember hearing that warm tone and thinking, I'll never change this. This will always be a theme for me. And when I saw other artists like D'Angelo and Erykah Badu and Raphael Sadiq and so many other people, Roy Ayers, I mean, so many other people embraced that sound and the same way that I did. I was just like, man, this is something I'll never change. This is a theme, for me, my music, and I'm still playing one to this day, but that being 70's, I'm a 70's baby.
Wait, man, shout out to this the Rose piano because it gave us a legend, man. And I don't even know where to start with your music, man. I mean, I could name so many songs, but I guess to start off with your biggest hit that everybody knows, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're my angel, you know what I'm saying? Everybody loves
big
that,
up,
you
man.
know.
Big up. Yeah, it's got Rhodes on it too. That's actually Tim Kelly on that, and Bob Robinson, Tim and Bob, formerly known as, and back in '96, we did that, and it was an amazing thing that when I heard that track, I just the first thing that you hear on that track is unmistakable. Is the Rhodes, the high Rhodes. It's like a little just bell almost at the top of the song. It's almost like, all right, here's the intro. The song's starting right now, and it's unmistakable. It was just an octave, I believe. You just hit with a high octave. It's like, and the song starts.
Yeah.
But just that signatory sort of sound at the top of that song, such a signature sound right there. It starts, it's very Jammin' Lewis, is what I say. But it's very Tim Kelly. It's very his style. I mean, but he sort of adopted a Jammin' Lewis sound, and I felt the same way when I was producing my music. I felt like it was a sort of this is the brainchild of Babyface and Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, and Teddy Riley. That's how I always felt about making my music. If I could make the music that I wanted to produce, those are my favorite guys. And so Tim Kelly and I, we have that synergy of having so much similarities in terms of our approach. So when I heard They Don't Know, I just instantaneously thought, man, oh my God, this was written for me. This was done for me. And this song really, it was so easy to write, being that track spoke so much emotion. If you listen to that track and that arpeggio on the guitar and the simple chord progression on the Rhodes, it really speaks to you, just the track. And just letting that track kind of ride, and really allowing my story to kind of come alive was, because the song's a story. The song's a story about hearsay and people talking and people hating, and the theme of the song is saying, don't listen to the hatred. Like, even if people are saying good stuff, don't listen to that either.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen to what people say. Like, it's about you and me. Like, you gotta feel me on this. Like, if we're gonna be in a relationship, it's between you and I, not anybody else. And I think that's why it's lasted the time. The test of time is because it's something that you can say every day, whether you're in a relationship for one day or you're in a relationship for 13 years. I just celebrated my 13th anniversary a couple of days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. But yeah, man, it's something that doesn't go away as far as a theme that can be used for your relationships. You know what I mean? And blessed to have people remember that one more than any other song, because they don't know. Because it's I can still tell people that they don't know. They really don't. No
And then
matter
you
how hard I tell
and then
them.
you got ones where it's underrated. I feel like Overflow. I feel like that song,
Oh wow.
like that's one of my favorites. I don't know why. Like
Oh,
it's one of those things where it's like I should know why, but it's like I don't know why. I really love that song, you know. So I
thank
don't know
you.
if there's a backstory on that song or everything you know, but
There
I would
is,
love to
yeah.
hear it.
Overflow. Well, I love the Isley Brothers.
Mm.
I love Tony. I love Aaliyah, and the way that this whole kind of song happened was first I heard Aaliyah's version of "At Your Best," which is really originally a
Hmm.
Isley Brothers song, and then I went back and I heard Isley Brothers' version of the song, and then I started listening to a little bit of Tony, and I had this kind of like this real this love for, like you said, 70s sound back then. It just this even I didn't really know how to make the drums sound like that yet because I was so into my hip hop that I was still using like really uh, these slappy sort of like snares that were like tap, you know what I mean, and not like chunky like
Yeah.
they weren't like that at all. It was still like boom pat boom bat, type of snare, and so I was sort of like experimenting with a more 70s sound with the snare drum on Overflow. When I first started programming the drums, it was like and it was very simple in that sense of the beat being, Isley's had those droned out type of beats like that, and it was like, you know, um, I think float on records like that, like they have that real floaty kind of quality to it where it could be a very, very simple chord progression that just goes back and forth and it's just whatever. It goes back and forth. And that's that kind of a song where it just, I feel like the song, the groove of the record was, I gotta cite the Isleys for that, but at the same time, I will say how I made it mine was, um, the song is a story. The song is about a guy falling in love with someone who didn't love him back,
Mm.
and having the experience of loving somebody so much that he didn't know that he wasn't supposed to love that much.
Mm.
Like he was supposed to love, but not love that much to where
Yeah.
it overflowed. You know what I mean? The love went over the glass, overflowed, and it also is a lot is a poem as well because it's very poetic in the sense of like I like old Southern blues because some of the way the wordplay is like very like almost like that's how we got our modern day kind of sayings. A lot of our sayings like a lot of the cliches that you hear, modern day cliches, come from old sayings that were just handed around back in the day. Obviously, people know that, but I like kind of like creating my own sort of like sayings in the sense of like, this feels like an old saying. It's like an old soul would say this. And back, I was thinking this way when I was 18, 19 years old, bro. I mean, I was trying to have my own little take on it, like, being philosophical with it. I feel like the song has a little philosophical quality to it because I'm talking about, you know, without saying, basically the theme of what I'm saying is don't love somebody that don't love you back. You know what I mean? Don't give all your love to somebody who's not willing to give you all their love back.
Mm.
You know? That's the theme of it. Now, there's all kinds of creative metaphors I use, like fool's gold and like, when the train's engine is when the train stops because the engine's too old, it's just like, I think it's kind of comedy now thinking back to it, man, because I was such an old soul for such a young guy back then. But yeah, it's definitely one of my sort of like songs, like almost was very, very almost true to life in a sense of I went through that story of having my heart broken like that. So I lived to experience that. Even that song was written before I went through the experience. I kind of lived that later on in my life. You know.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's why I like it because I'm an old soul, and there's so many just like ridiculous, like old sayings. Because I'm from the South, like when it's
Yeah.
raining and it's like a rainbow outside, they're like, "Oh, you know what that mean, right? The devil beating his wife." They're like, "What? The devil's beating his wife? What the hell's that?"
The devil's beating his wife.
You ever heard that one before?
That's right. Oh my God, I'm telling you, man.
It's a,
Oh
it's
my
it's
God,
crazy.
that's
It's
so
some
funny.
crazy
I
stuff,
love
man.
it. I love it.
And
I love
you mentioned all these people like Isleys, Aaliyah, and you've worked with so many legends. But the one that I have to ask about, even Tupac, but the one that I have to ask about because I want to, you're talking about music and knowing actual music. I just want to know how like this person is on like a musical level, and that's Babyface, man. Like exactly, like can you just
Oh,
explain working with him, like just how he was?
well, he's a quiet person, but he's very funny and he's very matter of fact. Like he's just very encouraging, but not to the point of being like excited, like on a ever out of pocket. He's just swag on another level in terms of like the baby face that you hear in interviews is the baby face that you get in the
Mm.
studio. Maybe a little more personable and jokey and funny, but he also is um, very focused, extremely focused, laser focused. Um, in terms of like, there's never a moment where he's he's contemplating or confused on what to do. I've always looked to Kenny as kind of a coach. I'm running the play. I have to be the player. So it's the ball's not getting from me to the basket without being in my hands. You
Mm.
know what I mean? He's not. This is not his game. He's on the side and he's coaching me. And he literally told me like, this is the best way to the hoop. You know, in metaphor, this is the metaphor I can use for it because my first time ever playing the game, he was the one who got in the game and scrimmaged with me and literally let everybody know this guy plays. He's out here. He's going to do this now. And he made people look to me as a player in this game, man. So first off, I want to say he didn't have to do that for me as a young man. I was just trying to be a producer and a songwriter. And to get my feet wet with him was sort of like, that was like, I was that's where I wanted to be. I was stylistically trying to make my production and the writing kind of like very patterned after his formulas and his style. So, and it wasn't so much of an obsession. I think it was just a matter of me being that into what he was doing that it naturally made so much sense with what I tastefully wanted to do on my own that we paralleled together. We naturally progressed together, and he was nice enough to allow me to progress with him and to nurture that on the way. So I will say he's a very nurturing person in the sense of when you get in the studio with him, there's no one who can nurture an idea better than Babyface. If you want someone to help you get it right on another level, he's going to be the guy. But not everybody gets that opportunity. And I had the pleasure of being able to have him in the room, not only to support me on the records that I produced on my own, but also to work with him as the sole producer of the record and to listen to him and to understand how his taste goes and how his ear works, because his ear is very precise. He doesn't really believe in a lot of looseness. Yes, there's a lot of belief in a lot of performance, because sometimes he would keep takes that I was like, oh no, let me do that again. He's like, no man, that's special. You don't even need to do that again. No, we're moving on. Next one. And I'm like, oh really? There's something he saw in that I do. I would have passed. Like for instance, like the way I sang "Someone to Love," the duet that we had together. Only Babyface could have produced that vocal like that, because it's very signatory of his sound. It's very, very me taking all the bottom out of my voice, all the diaphragm, all the support of the earthiness of my voice, and just having this very, very tender, sensitive sound to my voice. he said, "Sing it sweet, man. Sing it soft. Sing it sweet, and tell me and sing it like you mean it." And that's the way I approached it when I sang it with this innocence of really almost like, man, I don't want to think about not having any love in my life. If I think about that, it just makes me cold. It makes me feel like I'm alone. And that if I think about being alone, I don't want to sing that heroically. I want to sing that like, man, I lost it all right now, right? Like, so don't even want to think about it. It's like it's like surrendering from the first note. And it's very hard to do that. As a man, first of all, we're in our egos, we're in our feelings most of the time. Not, you know what I mean? We don't want to be, at least.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're guarding our hearts, guarding ourselves, trying to keep that tough exterior. So to let that down and get to the, like Babyface said, the sweet part. That's and yeah, man. So yeah, he's definitely like, for me, like the Gandalf of R&B. You know, he's like the wizard, man. He's the man. Yeah.
You work with a lot of people. Is it him, the one that's like blown you away musically? Like the person that you worked with that was just like doing things musically that you just like couldn't just compute with your head. You're like, what's going on here? Who is that person?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, his songwriting, his ability to just say precisely what a man should say to a woman, to make her feel good. It's just like, man, I was just listening to Johnny Gill's first album, his first solo album. Actually, it's his second solo album. It's his first album. But Babyface produced almost every song on that album. And there's a song on there called Feel So Much Better. And I was just listening to that. And the simplicity of the song, but the groove and the way the orchestration is, it's like, man, he used synthesizers in a very orchestral way, man. Like an absolute, like, arranger, like a symphonic arranger, like a Quincy Jones would take an orchestra and say, okay, guys, I need an orchestra, I need, horn section, I need, strings, I need... Babyface would do that with his synthesizer, and he would do that with specific sounds that are so embedded in my brain growing up in high school. The sounds that he used for like all the Bobby Brown stuff, the stuff that he did for Johnny, the Karen White stuff. I mean, let's go back, man. I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm even thinking to early Babyface, like playing of his show Slow Jam. You know what I mean? And like the first time you heard those lyrics like that about a guy approaching a girl on the dance floor to ask her to slow dance with him. I mean, it doesn't get more innocent than that. And like, if you want to strip down all the slickness and get down to what R&B, the roots of R&B, what it's really about, it's heart and soul, and letting that front down and getting to what we as people go through every day. You know what I mean? This is real shit. And it's like, I don't think there's anybody who could just say that real better than Kenny. Honestly, I think they've got some great guys who got great metaphors, great punchlines. You got teams now who are great teams. They're great teams that write dope songs. But once again, this is one man, y'all. This is one mind. And if I'm looking at you said one person.
Yeah, one.
That he's the man, yo. He's lyrical genius, symphonic arranger genius. Producer when it comes to tracking, everything. The best quality he is the Ferrari of how to do things musically, production wise.
He's the person that if I gave him like this freaking sweet and tangy sauce, this water bottle, goldfish, and I said, hey, make a beat and write some great lyrics, I think he could. Like, I think he would make it sound like a symphonic freaking snack. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what is going on?
He could definitely do that. I transferred to the computer now, so we're on my laptop.
Yeah, I see. All right. So yeah, I guess we can get right back into it. I don't know where we left off. I think you're just basically talking about Babyface genius, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I can't talk enough about the guy. We just, you just saw that whole Teddy Riley battles Babyface thing, right?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that.
I can't believe they're doing that. I can't believe they're doing that. And I mean, you can't put. That's like the Clash of the Titans right there. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's apples and oranges, man. You can't compare that. You can't compare a double-breasted peacoat to, you know what I mean, to you know to your you know your sport, sport, your best sporty tracksuit that you have. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't do that. It's like one is meant for a completely different purpose. We all party and we jammed out to Teddy Riley, right? You know, mostly up tempos, mid tempos. There's some jams that he had there with slow ballads. Let's Chill, Piece of My Love. And I'm not voting this on a level of, other than, my bias is obviously for Babyface, but I will say they both serve two completely different purposes. So I feel like it's almost like an impossible. It's a great way of bigging both of those masters, those kings, bigging both of those kings up. Like, let's do that. But to put them up against each other is like impossible. You can't do that. It's one comes from a completely different school than the other, and I feel like they kind of overlap in the sense of, like, during the 90's we were going through the whole New Jack Swing thing, and Teddy was the one who primarily helped create and form that style with those type of rhythms. He made those rhythms famous first,
Mm.
and then it was L.A. Reid and Babyface that sort of adopted that style after him and started to make the Bobby Brown records, the On Our Owns, the My Prerogative. Well, actually, My Prerogative was done by Teddy, but Every Little Step. It's like a New Jack Swing record. Every little step I take, and that was produced by L.A. Reid and Babyface. So they were kind of like at each other's, in certain areas. They were kind of like right there next to each other. But I feel like if you take away that the rhythm component of the percussive rhythm production component of what L.A. Reid brought to the production efforts of both Babyface, L.A. Reid and Babyface, it was a crucial part of the sound, man, of what made Babyface swing the way he did and have that. Them drums was hitting, man. The drums on Bobby Brown stuff, all the Karen White, all the drums. I listen to like I said, all the early Johnny Gill stuff. The drums are immaculate. It's so, still to this day, by today's standards, are amazing. And especially now that we're going back to like the old sounds too, I'm loving that the big drums are coming back into the, they've been back. But yeah, like L.A. Reid was a master at that stuff. So Teddy, he was one guy, and he was making all that happen. So you compare them together, and it's like, yeah, man, both are, it's, I can speak all day about Teddy, and I can speak all day about Babyface, because that's how crucial they are to. But that's asking about who's your favorite, your mom or your father,
Yeah.
which father is, you know what I mean? It's like, who's your favorite, your grandfather or your father? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's like, they're family for me, so it's a part of the equation, equal to.
I think the craziest thing about this whole thing is, like, I guess this all popped off when Swiss Beats went against Timbaland, and
Yeah,
I would say I'm a really big R&B guy. I love R&B, but Timbaland said something in that made me just like, it was like a light bulb went off. He was like, "I'm the king of this R&B stuff," and I was like, "Huh?" And then I thought about the people that he's worked with and the songs he's made.
See, I'm on King stuff, man.
I was like, "Huh?" You broke up.
You're
What you
gonna
say?
start the battling. He's gonna start the battle mentality, the competitiveness of like sports. You know what I mean? Like, this is sports. Like, first of all, I hate the idea of, and I'm no shade thrown. Like, this is directly my opinion from yours truly, and it is not no shade thrown. But when someone stands up and says, like, we the best music, I hope they mean like we as together,
Mm.
like not separate from, but we as a people. Like we the best music. Like we make the best music because what is the best music? I want to know what that is. And who is deciding on what the best music is? We as like the people together, united, are the best. Yeah, we that is the best music. That's harmony. But if you're trying to leave anybody out, then I'm saying, who are you to say what the best music is,
Too
my
many
dude?
people. Too
Like
many
I don't.
people.
You know what? And who is anybody to say I'm the king of anything? Like you are a king amongst kings. That's how I say it. And I feel like we should refer to ourselves as kings and shouldn't be afraid of another man when another man refers to himself as the king. But one thing I don't want to hand down to my young kings growing up is that we have to boast and be proud and feel like we have to beat our chest in order to get respect, because we don't. You can say things quiet and with focus and a different commitment to what you do. And if a person sees that and wants to acknowledge that, that's because they're just as wise as you. You know what I mean? And they see that wisdom inside you, something inside themselves. And that's something that's an unspoken thing. You don't even have to speak on that. That's just a fact, man. That's why I can say Timberland's a big influence on me. I mean, you go back to a track, like I did back in the day on Cool Relax album, like it's called Can't Help It.
Mm.
It's directly influenced by Timbo. Timbo is all over that track in terms of like the style of the drums. I remember I sampled my drum set, and I had my drum set in this closet in my first house I was renting, and there's this small little area for my drum set to be, a little makeshift little drum room, and it was just enough to be able to hang close. So it was small, but I mic'd the drums up and I sampled them into my MPC 3000. And I remember hearing his drums and thinking, God, it sounds like a live snare or something. It just sounds so like just a cracking snare. How did he get that? And so I went in and made my own snare, trying to chase that what I heard in my ear from his music. And so the song has these kick and snare that I made from my own drum set at home, and it also has all these very sort of like, I don't know. The sounds of the song are very unorthodox. It's almost like Asian. I used some Kyotos. I used like a mandolin, guitar. It was like very gangster, very like very mafioso, if you will. Sounding. Being that a lot of the old films that we saw back in the day had that
Yeah.
Italiano sort of like. Uh, Yeah, that fast plucking like that, trills or whatever it's called, and yeah, it's got that on there, and that all that way of thinking, even the harmonies on that song. I was a big fan of the group Player, um, uh, which was Timberland's produced. His group. They produced a lot of the songs. The song "Cheers to You" was their big record. But yeah, during that time, man, I was listening to all that stuff, and it was influencing me. Harmony wise, I was paying attention to all that, and you can definitely hear the Static influence. Static Major. You can definitely hear his harmony sensibility in that song "Can't Help It" off the Cool Relax album. And that's just it goes to show just how deep people the influence goes. One thing that I'm very proud of is not being afraid to admit the lineage, like to show people the lineage, the connection that we have. I'm not in my feelings like that for trying to be the best at anything, really. I want to just be great amongst greats. You know what I mean? Good at what I do too. As well. Um, and if someone happens to like it better than the next man or whatever, that's cool. But as far as me, I'll always be my favorite, right? Because
Yeah,
I
of
gotta be.
course.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, I might as well just stop. But the whole point is like, man, we gotta calibrate it, and look at it like take things to heart in terms of like what would you do as a grown man, and what would you want others to do in your same position. I just look at it like, damn, like I'm waiting for somebody to hit me up and be like, I want to do a battle against you and somebody who I don't know. I don't want to hear about it though. You know what I mean? I do what I do. If you enjoy it, then cool. If you enjoy what they do better, that's cool too. But big up my man Swiss and Timbo, and Swiss Beats. Speak about him real quick. He's like the style fashion artist guru. Like to me, he is a matriarch for our culture. Hip hop culture, black culture. I mean, as a whole, artistic culture. I mean, he's so proud of his culture that's really how I feel like you know and he's diverse. I know that his background, I don't know what his background is, but I know that he's a very diverse person and married to a beautiful woman who's very diverse herself. And they have a beautiful family. And I respect the way art is the center of their life as a family. They've encouraged their kids. I mean, I'm only trying to be like Swiss Beats, man, when it comes to how he's dressing and keeping it clean, man. Growing old with grace, you know what I mean? Showing these young men how to have swagger and have class, man. That's what it's about these days, and not being too shy to do it too. Because I think it's a lot of heads that got a lot of class, but we're somewhat an anomaly. We keep our anonymity to ourselves. We just want to stay, behind the scenes, and the only time you see us is in the videos. But it's nice when somebody comes out from behind the curtain and says, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And this is something that I think Swiss is doing a lot of, in the sense of like the posts that he does on the gram, and I see a lot of him, man. A lot of artistic appreciation that he has for other artists as well. I really appreciate that about him. As a lover of great fine art. So yeah, big up both of them, all them guys.
Well, hey man, I've talked your head off enough for today, so I want to end it off with this question that I feel like I've been wondering for a very long time, and I feel like it's the perfect way to end this conversation. Is have you ever? Because I know you said you wanted to, but have you ever met your twin brother Clay Thompson yet?
If you can end it like that, oh man. No, I have not met. I have not met Clay. No, I haven't met Clay, but I don't really see, other than the eyes, I guess, and maybe the nose. There's a similarity, and if anything, I am. It's weird. It's like if we had the same mama but different daddies or something like that.
Hey man, somebody brought it up one
So
time, and
big up my man Clay Tom. I wish I had his hands on the what I mean on the court, but I got the hands in the different sorts. You know what I mean?
for sure, for
So I'm
sure.
good too, but yeah.
Well, hey man,
Thanks for having me, Eric.
oh,
Appreciate
anything
you
else you
and
have
your
to say
question.
before you get out of here, man? Any things you have coming up? Any projects? Anything? Let it be
Oh
known.
man, I do actually. I have singles right now available. I'm pushing independently, man. It's really a beautiful thing to be independent as well. In this day and age where I can speak directly to my fans. I want everyone to get at me at official John B. On the Instagram and the Twitter, all the social media networks. But my website is called John B World. That's JONB World.com. Where you can find the tour schedule. You can check out all my new music as well. I just put 2 new songs out. I put my first single from the new album coming out very soon. I'm finishing up my mixes, and this thing's coming out fresh in 2020. But yeah, the first single that I have is called Understand. It's featuring R&B legend Donnell Jones, and it's a duet between the two of us. We have a video for it as well on the Vivo YouTube, man. Check it out. But it's available on my website. You can go there and check it out, as well as my new single called Priceless. We did a video for that as well. And it's just nice to be back with new music, man. I produced both these records and wrote them myself, and I'm really excited for my fans to hear what I'm doing fresh in 2020. So if you call yourself a John B fan, man, make sure you go out and support this independent movement all the time, and also just what I do. It gets no realer than this in terms of my music. This is my music from yours truly. So nothing's changed. I'm still here. And yeah, check out the videos for these records, as well as the new album's coming very soon. So make sure you go to the website to catch all the dates. Thursday, I'm doing Vibes Elect Cafe in my studio, where I'm welcomed everyone you, the listener, to my studio for private. It's truly performing for you, man. And just taking you back. I'm actually taking requests right now. Every day, I'm looking at everyone's requests on just any song that you think of from my preferably from my from my albums. That would I could sing that for you on Thursday. If I could put it together fast enough for you. So. But yeah, it's a pleasure to do that, and so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you on Thursday. But I really want people to go out and check this new music out, man. Priceless new single, and Understand featuring Donnell Jones. Don't forget about your man, all right?
Well, hey man, next time you drop an album or anything, we have to come back and break down the album. So if you're willing to do that, man, I think that's what the people would love to see, man. Because I enjoy having this
Let's do
conversation.
it, man. As soon as I drop the next single, I'll be back with you. We'll talk again, man. I'm got the next single about to drop. We're gonna cut a video for it as soon as things get back in. As soon as the world comes back.
Yeah.
As soon as we go back to being regular again, we're gonna get out there and shoot this video and get this next single out, as well as a venue near you. I'm sure I'll be in Florida soon too, as well, man. So,
Hopefully, man. Hopefully. Thank
yeah,
you
man,
for everybody
that's,
watching right
thank
now.
you
I
again for
appreciate
having
you
me.
guys. Until next time, I say what I mean. I
Yes.
mean what I say. Haters gonna hate, players gonna play. You guys holler at your boy.